The day my boss underpaid the wrong employee. Most bosses think underpaying an employee saves money. According to one IT technician, his boss thought exactly the same thing. It wasn't a huge amount of money, just one paycheck, one broken promise, one employee who finally had enough. His boss figured he'd complain, maybe threaten to quit. Instead, he walked away, and within months, the company's biggest client was in complete chaos. Critical systems failed. Passwords disappeared. Backups were gone. The replacement technician had no idea what he was looking at. Then the boss came crawling back, desperate. Unfortunately for him, he'd already made sure nobody could legally help him, including the one person who knew how to fix everything. And that single decision would end up costing him nearly everything he owned. According to the technician, he never planned on staying 15 years. Like most jobs, it was supposed to be temporary, just something to build experience, earn a paycheck, move on. Instead, 1 year became 3, 3 became 7. 7 somehow became 15. During that time, he became far more than a technician. He became the person everyone called. Customers knew him by name. Receptionists knew his voice. Managers would ask for him specifically, because if something stopped working, he usually knew why before anyone else. According to him, his job wasn't limited to computers. Far from it. One morning he'd repair a server. That afternoon he'd be programming a security system. The next day he'd troubleshoot a phone network, then a badge access system, then surveillance cameras, then a fire alarm controller. Every customer seemed to own different equipment, which meant he had to learn all of it. According to the technician, the hardest part wasn't learning new technology, it was remembering it all. Every customer's network was different. Every business had its own quirks. Some systems were 20 years old. Others had been installed just weeks earlier. Some customers had excellent records. Others had absolutely nothing. According to him, he learned very quickly not to trust anyone else's documentation. If he wanted a system fixed quickly, he needed his own notes. So he started documenting everything. Not because management asked him to, because future him would appreciate it. Every cable, every IP address, every administrator password, every firmware update, every strange workaround, every hidden menu. If something took him 3 hours to figure out, he made sure it would only take 30 seconds the next time. According to the technician, that habit became invaluable. Customers loved him, not because he was a genius, because he rarely had to guess. He'd seen the problem before, or at least something very similar. He always had somewhere to start. Over the years, those notes became enormous. Thousands of pages, diagrams, configuration files. He always had somewhere to start. Over the years, those notes became enormous. Thousands of pages, diagrams, configuration files. Installation photos, backup software, license keys, recovery procedures. According to the technician, it wasn't glamorous work. Nobody thanked him for documentation. Nobody congratulated him for making backups. Most people didn't even know they existed, until something went wrong. Then suddenly, everyone expected miracles. The miracle usually came from something he'd written years earlier, something he'd almost forgotten himself. According to him, there was one thing management never seemed to understand. Knowledge isn't free. It takes years to build. Experience can't be downloaded. You can't replace 15 years with a weekend of training. But management often acted like you could. Every budget meeting sounded the same. Cut costs, delay upgrades, stretch equipment another year, reuse old hardware, buy cheaper parts, do more with less. According to the technician, he heard that phrase constantly, do more with less. Eventually, it became his entire job. He wasn't just fixing problems anymore. He was preventing disasters, usually without anyone noticing. And strangely, that was the problem. When everything works, people assume you're unnecessary. Nobody notices the disasters that never happen. According to him, burnout didn't happen overnight. It crept in slowly. One missed weekend, one late-night emergency, one canceled holiday, then another, and another. Soon he couldn't remember the last uninterrupted vacation he'd taken. His phone never truly stopped ringing. Customers had his number. The office had his number. Even coworkers called him after hours, because he usually knew the answer. According to the technician, he started asking for help. Not a lot, just enough. Another field technician, someone to share the workload, someone to cover holidays, someone to answer emergency calls. His boss always had the same response. Next quarter, we'll look into it. We don't have the budget. It'll get better soon. It never did. According to the technician, that promise became almost a joke. Every year was supposedly the year help was coming. Every year nothing changed. Until one unexpected phone call changed everything. According to the technician, the phone call came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. He almost ignored it. He was already on his way to another customer, running behind schedule. Again, the number wasn't familiar. Normally he would have let it go to voicemail. Something told him to answer, so he did. It was a recruiter. According to the technician, he almost laughed. He wasn't looking for another job, not actively. He simply didn't have the energy. The recruiter asked one question. "Are you happy where you are?" The technician didn't answer immediately, because he honestly didn't know. He enjoyed fixing problems. He liked helping customers. He even liked the challenge. What he didn't enjoy anymore was living at work. According to him, the recruiter described a completely different kind of job. Better pay, regular hours, weekends off, no midnight emergency calls, no being permanently on call. The technician thought it sounded too good to be true. Then the salary came up. It was significantly higher, not by a few dollars, by enough to completely change his life. According to the technician, he agreed to an interview, mostly out of curiosity. He didn't expect much, but the interview went surprisingly well. Very well. Instead of asking impossible technical questions, they asked about experience, problem solving, customer service, real-world situations, things he'd been doing for years. The conversation felt natural, comfortable, professional. According to the technician, he left feeling hopeful, a feeling he hadn't had about work in a long time. 3 days later, the offer arrived. He read it twice, then a third time, just to make sure he hadn't misunderstood. The salary was real. The benefits were real. The hours were real. For the first time in years, someone actually valued his experience. According to the technician, accepting the offer wasn't difficult. Telling his boss was. Very difficult. Not because he felt guilty, because he knew exactly how the conversation would go. He walked into the office, closed the door, placed a letter on the desk, his 2 weeks' notice. His boss looked confused, then surprised, then panicked. According to the technician, the first question wasn't congratulations. It wasn't, what's the new opportunity? It wasn't even, can I change your mind? Instead, his boss blurted out, "You're quitting?" The technician nodded. Calmly, his boss leaned back, ran both hands over his face, then asked why. According to the technician, that question almost made him smile. Not because it was funny, because he'd answered it before, many times. He reminded his boss about the extra technician he'd requested, the endless overtime, the canceled holidays, the constant burnout. His boss just stared. The technician continued. He reminded him about every conversation, every promise, every next quarter, every "we'll look into it." According to the technician, his boss didn't argue, because he couldn't. He remembered those conversations too. There was just one problem. The company had no backup plan, no second technician, no replacement, nobody waiting in the wings. His boss looked genuinely worried. Then he asked the question the technician had been expecting. "What am I supposed to do?" The technician answered honestly, "I don't know. I gave you 2 weeks." According to the technician, his boss wasn't satisfied with that answer. Not even close. He stood up, started pacing, running through possibilities out loud. Hire somebody immediately. Call another company. Promote someone internally. None of it sounded realistic. The technician simply listened. Because there wasn't much else to say, his boss eventually stopped pacing, then asked another question. "Is there any way you'll stay longer?" According to the technician, he'd already thought about that. The answer was no. His new employer expected him. They'd already agreed on a start date. Delaying wasn't an option. His boss sighed, a long, frustrated sigh. Then he said something unexpected. "What would it take?" The technician paused. He hadn't expected negotiations. Not after all those years. According to him, he spent several minutes thinking. Not because he wanted to stay forever. He didn't. Because despite everything, he still cared about the customers. They hadn't done anything wrong. Many of them had relied on him for years. Leaving them with no support overnight didn't sit right with him. Eventually, he made an offer. A simple one. He'd work mornings only, 9 until 2. Then he'd leave for his new job. Just enough time to help. Just enough time to train someone. Just enough time to hand everything over properly. According to the technician, his boss looked relieved. Almost instantly. Then came the next question. What do you want in return? The technician named 2 things. A higher hourly rate, and ownership of the company phone number he'd been using for years. The phone number mattered. Customers already knew it. Friends knew it. Family knew it. Changing everything would have been a headache. According to the technician, his boss agreed almost immediately. No hesitation, no negotiation. Just a handshake. A simple handshake. Looking back, the technician admits that was his mistake. Nothing was written down. No contract, no email, no signed agreement. Just 2 men shaking hands. According to him, he knew better. He really did. But after 15 years, he wanted to believe his boss's word meant something. He wanted to believe they'd earned that much. So the following Monday, he started living 2 lives. Every morning he worked for his old company. Every afternoon, he worked for the new one. The schedule was exhausting, but manageable, because there was finally an end in sight. He had no idea his boss had already decided to break their agreement. According to the technician, his first week under the new arrangement went smoothly. He worked mornings for his old employer, afternoons for the new one. It was tiring, but exactly what they'd agreed to. Then payday arrived. He checked his pay stub. The hours were correct. The pay rate wasn't. His boss hadn't honored the agreement. According to the technician, he tried calling immediately. No answer. The office manager explained the boss was out of town. Payroll couldn't change anything without approval. The technician decided to wait until Monday. His boss apologized, claimed it was just an oversight. He promised payroll would fix everything on the next check. The technician wanted to believe him, so he kept working. That same day, his replacement finally arrived. The new technician seemed eager, but he knew almost nothing about the company's systems. According to the technician, he spent every spare minute training him. Customer histories, equipment layouts, common failures, where documentation was stored. The importance of backups. He repeated one lesson constantly. Never delete anything unless you're absolutely certain. The new technician nodded every time. Whether he truly understood, the technician couldn't tell. 2 more weeks passed. Training continued. Customers slowly became familiar with the new face. The technician genuinely hoped the transition would succeed. He wanted to leave on good terms. Then the second paycheck arrived. He opened it, looked at the number, then looked again. It was wrong. Exactly the same pay rate as before. According to the technician, that told him everything he needed to know. This wasn't a mistake anymore. It was a decision, a deliberate one. He finished the day without saying a word, packed his things, went home, and turned off his work phone, for the first time in 15 years. He simply stopped answering. The next 2 days, his phone filled with missed calls, voicemails, text messages, each one more desperate than the last. On the third morning, he finally turned the phone back on. His boss was waiting. According to the technician, he answered the call calmly. His boss wasn't calm. "What the hell happened to you? Where have you been?" The technician waited for him to finish, then asked one question. "Do you have my money?" Silence. His boss sounded confused. "What money?" The technician sighed. "The money you promised me. The agreement we shook hands on. The agreement you broke." According to the technician, his boss immediately became defensive. It was just payroll. "It'll get sorted. You can't just disappear." The technician interrupted him. "I already did." He reminded his boss that he'd already done him a favor. He'd stayed after resigning. He'd trained the replacement. He'd worked 2 jobs every day, all because of one promise. A promise his boss broke. According to the technician, his boss tried changing tactics. "It was only 1 paycheck. We'll fix it." The technician laughed. Not because it was funny, because he'd heard promises before. For 15 years, next quarter, maybe next month, we'll take care of it. He'd finally stopped believing them. The technician spoke quietly. "If you'd kept your word, I'd still be helping. But you didn't, so we're finished." According to him, his boss's tone changed instantly. The panic disappeared. The anger arrived. His boss accused him of abandoning the company, of abandoning customers, of acting unprofessionally. The technician couldn't believe what he was hearing. After everything he'd done, he was somehow the bad guy. Then came the threat. His boss reminded him about the non-compete agreement. The technician had signed it shortly after leaving. It was broad, very broad. His boss claimed he'd sue if the agreement was breached. According to the technician, he didn't argue. He simply replied, "Good luck." Then he hung up. He blocked the number and got on with his new life. Months passed. Work became normal again. For the first time in years, he had evenings free. Weekends belonged to him. His phone stayed quiet. It was exactly the change he'd needed. Then one afternoon, an old customer called. A very important customer. One he'd worked with for years. According to the technician, they sounded stressed. Critical systems were failing. Production had slowed. Nobody could figure out why. The customer assumed he still worked there. The technician explained he'd left months earlier. He politely suggested they contact his former employer. Then wished them luck. 2 days later, his replacement called. The young technician sounded overwhelmed. He couldn't find the documentation. He couldn't find the passwords. He couldn't even locate the recovery files. According to the technician, he patiently explained where everything should be stored. There was a long pause. Then the replacement quietly admitted, "It isn't there." The technician felt a knot form in his stomach. Because if those files were truly gone, the company had a much bigger problem than anyone realized. And before the week was over, his former boss would be calling again. This time, not to make threats, to beg for help. According to the technician, the phone rang the very next morning. He already knew who it was. His former boss. This time, the attitude was completely different. Gone was the yelling. Gone were the threats. His boss sounded exhausted, almost defeated. According to the technician, the first words surprised him. "I need your help." The technician stayed quiet. His boss continued. The replacement couldn't fix the client's systems. Production was falling behind. The customer was furious. Every hour of downtime was costing money. Lots of money. According to the technician, he asked a simple question. What happened to the documentation? His boss hesitated, then admitted they couldn't find it. Not the passwords, not the wiring diagrams, not the recovery procedures. Nothing. The technician wasn't angry, just confused, because he'd left everything on the company laptop, exactly where it belonged. His boss immediately asked another question. "You kept backups?" "You always kept backups." According to the technician, he nodded even though his boss couldn't see him. "I did." His boss sounded relieved. For a second. Then came the question. "Can you send them to me?" The technician took a deep breath. "I can't." His boss thought he meant he wouldn't. He was wrong. The technician explained. Those backups had always been on his personal computer, not company property. His own equipment he'd paid for himself. According to the technician, his boss interrupted. "Perfect. Just copy them." The technician stopped him. "They don't exist anymore." Silence. Complete silence. Then came a quiet question. "What do you mean?" The technician answered honestly. After all the legal threats, after being forced to sign the non-compete, he destroyed every personal copy, every backup, every note, every customer file, because he didn't want anyone accusing him of keeping company information. According to the technician, his boss couldn't believe it. "You deleted everything?" "Every last bit." The technician replied calmly. "You made it very clear you didn't trust me, so I made sure there'd never be a reason to question me." There was another long silence. Then the boss quietly admitted something. The replacement had accidentally reformatted the company laptop, thinking it would speed it up. Nobody realized the documentation was stored locally. Nobody had checked before wiping it. According to the technician, he closed his eyes. 15 years of knowledge? Gone with a single click, and there was nothing anyone could do to bring it back. According to the technician, his boss wasn't ready to give up, not when one client was threatening to cost him a fortune. He took a different approach. No more yelling. No more threats. Just one question. What would it take to bring you back? The technician didn't answer immediately. He wasn't interested in returning. His new job treated him well. He finally had a life outside work. According to him, there wasn't enough money to undo 15 years of burnout. His boss tried another angle. Not as an employee, as a consultant. Just until we get through this. The technician was curious. "What are you offering?" His boss answered confidently. $150 a day. The technician almost laughed. Not because it was generous. Because it wasn't. According to him, that figure told him his boss still hadn't learned anything. The downtime alone was costing far more than that. Outside security contractors were already on site. Lawyers were getting involved. Customers were demanding answers. And his boss thought $150 a day would solve it. The technician quietly replied, "I can't help you." His boss sounded frustrated. "What do you mean you can't? You know exactly how to fix this." "I probably do. But I'm legally prevented from doing it." There was silence. Then the technician reminded him. "The non-compete. The one you insisted I sign." According to the technician, he explained it as simply as possible. If he consulted, he'd be performing exactly the kind of work the agreement prohibited. If anyone found out, his former boss could accuse him of violating the contract. The technician wasn't willing to risk that. especially not for someone who'd already broken his word once. His boss tried arguing, then pleading, then bargaining. Nothing worked. According to the technician, the conversation ended with one sentence. "You wrote the contract. Now you have to live with it." A few weeks later, he heard what happened next. The client enforced the service contract. Every repair, every emergency visit, every outside specialist, every legal expense. The company was responsible for all of it. The costs climbed quickly, far beyond what anyone expected. According to someone who still worked there, the case never reached a full trial. The company settled for an amount rumored to be close to 6 figures. The replacement technician resigned soon afterward. The business never fully recovered. Within the next year, his former boss sold the company, closed the original office, downsized dramatically. Years later, the technician heard one final update. His former boss no longer owned a business. He was simply another employee, working for someone else. According to the technician, he never celebrated what happened, because none of it had to happen. All his boss had to do was keep one promise, honor one handshake, pay one employee what he'd agreed to. Instead, he chose to save a few dollars, and it ended up costing him the business he'd spent years building. Looking back, the technician says the lesson was surprisingly simple. People don't usually quit over one paycheck. They quit after years of broken promises. That final paycheck was simply the moment he realized nothing was ever going to change. And according to him, that was the most expensive payroll mistake his former boss would ever make. According to the technician, people often ask if he regrets leaving. His answer is always the same. Not for a second. He doesn't regret finding a better job. He doesn't regret setting boundaries. And he certainly doesn't regret refusing to be taken advantage of. The only thing he regrets is believing a handshake was enough. Looking back, he says every lesson in that experience came down to trust. Trust your instincts. Trust your value. But never confuse loyalty with obligation. Because a good employee will often give far more than they're paid for, until one day, they simply stop. According to the technician, his boss spent years believing he was saving money, delaying raises, ignoring warnings, putting off hiring help, breaking promises whenever it suited him. In reality, he was building a debt he couldn't see, a debt made of experience, trust, goodwill, and loyalty. When that debt finally came due, it wasn't paid with one paycheck. It was paid with contracts, customers, legal fees, and eventually, the company itself. According to the technician, that's why he tells people one simple thing. If someone keeps your business running, treat them like they matter before they're gone. Because replacing a person is always easier on paper than it is in real life. His former boss learned that lesson. Unfortunately, it was far too late. And all because of one decision, to save a little money by underpaying the wrong employee. Funny thing is, this story was never really about one paycheck. It was about 15 years of loyalty being treated like it had no value. The missing documentation didn't destroy that company. The replacement technician didn't destroy that company. Even the lawsuit didn't destroy that company. The company started falling apart the moment its owner believed the person keeping everything together was easily replaceable. Experience isn't something you can hire overnight. Trust isn't something you can rebuild with a handshake. And loyalty only lasts as long as it's respected. In the end, the boss tried to save a few dollars by breaking one promise. Instead, he lost his best technician, one of his biggest clients, nearly 6 figures in legal costs, and eventually the company itself, all because he underestimated the value of one employee. But what do you think? Was the technician right to walk away the moment his boss broke the agreement? Or should he have given him one more chance? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy workplace revenge, entitled bosses, Reddit stories, and unbelievable real-life karma, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.